what is the West Lothian question, people ask me. And it's the fact that since we've had a much more devolved settlement to Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, there are a number of members of Parliament who are elected, almost 100 who are elected to Westminster, who are able to vote on issues that will not actually affect their own constituents. And so it's an anomaly that's really arisen in our constitution as a result of devolution. And my private member's bill is an attempt to answer this tricky question. It's a very tricky constitutional question because one of the privileges that one has as a Member of Parliament is something called parliamentary privilege. That means that if you're in the Chamber of Westminster, you are able to speak and vote on any matter that's before the House. And so you obviously can't have different classes of MPs, the sort of MP who can only express a view about issues in Wales, or the sort of MP who can only express a view about issues in Northern Ireland and England. This is the British Parliament, the United Kingdom Parliament. We are able to express a view on all issues that come before this House. And so you cannot, through legislation, answer the West Lothian question. You cannot pass a law that says if you represent, let's say for the sake of argument, Scotland, you're not able to vote on this legislation because it only it doesn't affect people in Scotland. So my private member's bill answers the question through an indirect route. It is going to ask the Secretary of State, when preparing draft legislation, to identify on the face of the bill which parts of the United Kingdom it applies to. Does it apply to Northern Ireland, Scotland, England and Wales? And therefore every single piece of legislation that will come before the House will have it explicit on the face of the bill which part of the United Kingdom it applies to. That will then allow the Speaker, through standing orders, to decide which committee, as it were, would then go through the different readings of the bill as it went through Parliament. So it would allow standing orders to be used to determine who was going to be voting on the particular issue. This bill is purely looking in terms of territorial extent at the countries of the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. Now the coalition government does believe wholeheartedly in passing more decisions down to local communities, and we think that will lead to more regional variations between counties, between districts and so on and so forth, as more decisions are taken locally, but that's a completely separate topic. I have an exactly average electorate in West Worcestershire. I'm within that plus or minus 5% at the moment, and I find that you know, it seems to be a very manageable number. Yet down the road, you might have someone who's been elected on a franchise of half that. And I think that everyone across the country ought to have, you know, a more equal ear of their MP. I think that whatever the number is drawn as, and I think it's been suggested that it should be in the legislation, it should be 600 MPs. I think that works out to be about 76,000 electors on average in every constituency, plus or minus 5%. I can say that's a perfectly manageable number of MPs. I know my colleague Andrew Turner, who's the MP for the Isle of Wight, has 100,000 constituents, and he's very keen that he should keep 100,000 constituents, and he copes perfectly well with that. So yes, of course there's a finite limit, but I think 76,000 is extremely manageable. There are a lot of demands on Members of Parliament's time. I think all Members of Parliament really do want to have that ongoing commitment to their local area, understand what the local issues are, because the local issues really inform what it is that you're going to be campaigning on here at Westminster. So that connection is so important. And I think that it's always got to be constituents first. It's your constituents who put you here, and what you're doing is representing their interests in terms of the national government. But at the same time, you know, you do want to try and pursue some of the sort of more national issues while you're here as well.